Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I am Amalgam Ash, and this is another entry in my Project D, or DeprHaven Devlog series, an adventure game made with RPG developer Bakin. I have my test bed, which should look familiar by now. It's the one map getting the most action here in my devlog series, and I have 4 events, 5 actually, that I just imported. These events are events that I made on Char's PC on her copy of Bakin while we were hanging out doing other stuff, and I was able to get them ported and then imported into my copy of Bakin, which is what you see here, set up on my PC back in my studio. And it was the first time that I'd actually imported events that I had made and exported, so that was kind of interesting. I got an error talking about how the variables had the same name, and would I like to overwrite them or replace them, and given a yes or no option. And I thought that was really strange because I thought the outcome would be the same whether I selected yes or no, but that is not the case. If you select no, then the variables that you import into your project that have the same name as variables that are in your project will be renamed, and I mean all of the instances of them will be renamed. So whether you select yes or no, the system that you bring in will work, because it doesn't really matter what the variable names are in and of themselves. But if you need your system to work with an existing system that's like in the destination project, you do not want to rename those variables. They won't work. I didn't have a whole lot of work to do to clean that up, fortunately. I noticed the effects of it happening pretty quick after I had selected yes for one set and no for the other. I didn't expect that to happen, but it's fine. I'm better for it, and I can maybe teach you guys what I'm talking about, and you don't have to worry about it whenever you see the issue. Of course, if you're never exporting your events and importing, then you'll never see it. You don't have to worry about it. But I have 5 events here that I've imported total. One's a common event, and actually one of these other ones needs to be a common event too, because it's going to be on every map. I'm going to show you what exactly I have accomplished before I talk about how it works, why it works. This is a testbed map. This is all prototype. Nothing here is permanent. It's all placeholder, etc. You'll notice in the bottom left corner of the screen, I now have an item and topic string variable display in my what's going to be the HUD. And these are always going to be shown right now. And this system might look a little bit familiar if you've watched the channel for a while, because I created the system in SGB a long time ago, and it worked beautifully in SGB once I got it figured out. I wanted to use this system for this game, this being the same game that I showed off in SGB, I think about a year ago. I haven't been working on it since. Just made the system and completely abandoned it, really. But the system allows you to collect items from NPCs out in the world, as one does, as well as keywords or topics, as I have them named for now. I actually like keywords better, so I'm going to change that to keyword. But in the SNES game Shadowrun, you would go to an NPC and they'll have conversation, flavor text, whatever. They might even teach you a little bit about the game lore, or give you instructions, hint at where to go next, like, oh man, I sure hate those sewer rats down below. I sure hope somebody takes care of them. I heard a rumor that there's a rat king down there. That sort of thing. But every once in a while in Shadowrun, you'll come across text that is bold. It'll either be a term or a phrase, but it'll be bold. And you'll notice when you talk to NPCs in Shadowrun that you have a list of keywords that you use to engage them in conversation. You can just go up and talk to them, and they'll have a thing that they say by default. But when you use your keyword, they may say something unique, and they may offer you new things. They might have explicit instructions on where to go. Something might get unlocked. They might give you another keyword, which I'll explain that example in a moment, or they might outright try to fight you, and then you'd get, rewards from beating them, progress the game. But anyways, let's say this guy right here, if I talk to him, he's like, get lost, I don't have time for you. Well, let's pretend I have the keyword King's Order that I got from the king, who said, hey, you, main player, go tell the guy in black with the red hair that I need to see him, that's an order. So he says get lost, but if you switch your active keyword to King's Order and then talk to him, he'll be like, oh, the king wants to see me? I'm on my way. God, why didn't you tell me sooner? Get out of the way. And that progresses the game. So this is exactly the kind of system that I want. And now it's time to show you what these NPCs do and how they relate to the item and topic HUD display in the bottom left corner. If I talk to this guy, I will get the skill, the book, the key, the torch, the map, and the rope. And the skill is just the skill of using an item to begin with. This is what gives the player the item usage ability. I have the Q and E keys on my keyboard set up to use these items and topics, keywords, and I'm going to disable the ability for the player to use the left and right camera rotate. So I'm going to hit Q, and you'll see that I now have items that have populated below the item category. I've got the key, the map, the rope, the torch, no item, and the book. And that's exactly what I want. I want these items to be here. I did have a test bed in my other project where I made this, where there were like 5 NPCs. Each one gave you one of these items. And I had another 5 NPCs. Each one would take away one of these items. And I had it set up that way so I could test that this would work even if I lost an item or 3 or all of them or gained them back in any order. And the system is perfectly solid. It is absolutely solid. You can have this system too, by the way, if you join the RPG Developer Bakin Discord and go check out the shareable text files. I've got all of the scripts necessary to implement the system in your game, and you can have it. I mean, I don't care. So anyway, if we go to the next NPC here, he'll give us the skill of using the keywords, as well as the slime, cave, talk, initiate, and queen keywords. And if I hit the E key, you can see me toggling between all of those. No topic, slime, cave, initiate, talk, and queen. And I'll have all my stuff now. So I can set up some NPCs for the test bed that will take each of these, if I have them as set as the active one for their category, and respond in some way. However, I won't do that for this video because I know that that system works because I've already done it in the other test bed, which has to remain off camera because it's on someone else's PC. But now I will show you how exactly this works. If you're interested in this system, or you want something similar to it to build off of, you can stay tuned. I'll go ahead and get right into that. So the crux of this is NPCs that give you the various items or topics or keywords. And you could use this, I mean, you could scale it out to where it's NPCs giving you weapons, and then you've got a weapons toggle, a cycle of weapons that you go through. You could have one strictly for tools, one strictly for consumables. I mean, the sky is the limit. You could do whatever you want, up to the amount of keys on your keyboard that you're willing to use to activate these toggles and cycle them through. Now, the other two things up here and the common event are what really drive this. I'm going to show you the common event first, because it makes sense to show you this first. The common event automatically starts and repeats in parallel in the background. It's always running. It's watching for operation key action 2 and assigning that result to the key press item change variable. The name of that variable doesn't matter. It's just what I named the variable because I wanted to use standard variable naming conventions, and I wanted this to be very descriptive. This is the key press item change. Exactly what operation key and action 2 is if we hit apply, okay, we go to game definition. On the right side of the screen, we're looking at stuff that's probably going to look a little confusing now if you haven't gotten into your input device settings for your project in Bakin. But you can take these different keybinds and they'll associate different keys on your keyboard or buttons on your mouse or buttons on your joypad to different functions. This is an extremely helpful area to be messing around in. If you want to know more about it, I have a couple of videos on the subject, so I recommend going and checking them out. Keybinds. But here, you can see I've commented out bind for camera horizontal rotation clockwise and counterclockwise. They no longer are triggered by the Q and E keys. Instead, I took Q and E and I sat them down here on bind action 2 and action 3. And that's where I want them. I want Q to trigger what the game thinks of as action 2. I want E to trigger what the game thinks of as action 3. And so, thousands of times a second, when this event is running in a loop, it is looking at operation key action 2, which is the item change, so the Q key, and it's trying to determine if that's been pressed. And if the key has been pressed, it will return a 2. A 2 meaning, hey, I've been pressed. I'm pressed right now. While a 1 and a 0 and a -1 offer other values. It's 2 that I want. The other event panel in this event is another advanced variable box operation. It is listening for action 3 to be pressed, or the E key, and it's assigning its value to key press topic change. Again, you can name that variable whatever you want. That's what I named it because it's descriptive and it follows standard variable naming conventions. So it's constantly watching for key presses and assigning the values to the variables for controller or keyboard input. And if we go to this event, this is automatically start and repeat in parallel. This probably could be a common event instead. It probably could be worked in with the other common event, actually. So I could do that. But this shows you the item on the screen. Item is here. It's always in the corner. You can place it wherever you want. You can specify the position, of course. I like it there for now, and I like it being red. And then the other event panel here is the topic event panel, and then the string for the active topic shows just below that to represent what's currently active, what's being cycled through. That's all that event is. We hit OK, we look at this. This is the last event. It's the crux of the whole system. And I want to mention right now that I had asked for help in the RPG Developer Discord, and I got help from two awesome individuals. Melon Toucan and Evolution Artist both took their time to go through and create systems similar to this based on what I was asking for and what I was hoping I could achieve. I didn't end up using either of the systems that they gave to me, but those systems did work. It's that I needed something that I could add items to at any point without having to then exponentially add more checks. And the only reason that I knew that could be done is because I had done this before at SGB and just could not figure out how the heck I did it. But I've got a note here, see bottom of this event for detailed note on how to add new items. It's not a great note though down there. It actually needs to be worked. But I have a series of these sections, these blocks, these event blocks each contain the same amount and configuration of event panels. They're all the same except for the very last one, which is slightly different in just one way. But anyways, the way that this event logic flows is I have a variable called pointer item, and this is a variable that is going to get incremented with each check. And if the pointer item is set to 0, which it is by default, as soon as you press this button, this Q on the keyboard to change through your items, then it will add 1 to the pointer item variable just to increment itself by 1, and then it will make a check to see if you have this item book switch. Is it on? This would be on if you received a book in my game. So in this case, we'll pretend that it's on. But there are no physical items, no items being added to your inventory in the game. It's all done by switches for this particular project. I may have consumable items and weapons and the like, but for like these key items, this is kind of what I want to do. I may actually also give you an item to check if I want you to have access to like that default item UI, but I'm not that far ahead yet. I'm not quite sure I want to use any of the default UI, you know? So for now, I'm just eventing it from the ground up and pretending like the UI doesn't even exist. But if the item book switch is on, then we go ahead and we assign the word book to active item. Active item is the string that's going to be displayed on the screen right below the word item. So in this case, you're cycling right to the book, and then the event just ends. It ends here, it breaks out of the loop, and it stops this event. Now, it's not going to run through this logic again until key press item change is equal to 2 again, which means you're pressing the Q key again. But once you do that, your pointer item variable is now equal to 1. So being that it's not equal to 0, we're going to skip this entire code block and go to the next code block. If pointer item is equal to 1, then it will check. It will add 1 to the pointer item again, and it will check to see if you have the next item in the sequence. Do you have the key? Let's pretend you do not have the key. You did not get the key in the game yet. This item key switch is not set to on. It will skip past the rest of this block. It will still have taken on the incrementing of the variable, but it will go into the next block instead of ending the event. When it goes into the next block, it's saying if pointer item is equal to 2, and this is necessary to have this check here at the beginning, because you might have hit this key and it needs to skip the first 2 or 10 or 20 of these item checks until it gets to the one that you have, and then it will check to see if you have the map. Do you have the map? So basically, just to TLDR this, too long didn't read, too long didn't watch, TLDW, if you have the item, it will place the name of the item as your active item on the screen. If you don't have the item, it's going to skip right by it. It's using logic to skip right by that item. It'll check for the next one in the sequence, and the next one, and the next one, until it gets to the very end. At the very end, I have this event. So this is the 5th one in the series, so it's checking to see if pointer item is equal to 5, and if it is, because this is the last one, we won't increment it. We'll actually just assign a 0 to it. We're doing that because since this is the last one, once you hit this button again, we want this to start all the way from the top again and properly loop through these selections in order. Because if we incremented this by 1, we don't have a check in here to check to see if it's equal to 6, and therefore your event will never work again. You can add another code block to this and have that check for 6, and then you can have this event panel increment instead of assign the value of 0. And in your last code block, the new one that you create, you'll simply say that it assigns it to 0 instead. So in that way, you can add more items. I don't think I've explained that very well. I wrote these instructions for myself, but I ended up putting this note in the event that I created. So please forgive me. This note is terrible. Just delete it off of the whole thing. But anyways, I hope that makes sense. It was tough for me to wrap my brain around how to do this logic in a way that the whole thing just wouldn't be going through loops the entire time, and so it could end properly and also pick back up where it was properly, and now it can. So I can add another item to this whole thing. I'll even do it right now. I'll even do it right now. So I'll go into my text. That is the text editing method, and I'll just copy this entire block. Very, very handily highlights the entire block whenever you click the highest in a hierarchy of checks. I'm going to go back to panel because I'm just comfortable working in panel, and I'll paste it right here, and it'll just add a new block. So I'll check for 6 on pointer item. I'll go up here and I'll increment this by 1 instead of assign a 0 to it. This is assigning a 0, so I don't have to worry about changing anything there. And then I'm going to make a new variable, and I'm going to call it in line with the rest of my naming conventions. Item shovel. We'll put a shovel in here because why not? We'll make sure that we select it, and then we'll assign shovel to the active item string variable, and this event will be ended as soon as that happens. So if we hit apply, then okay, and then we make sure that this guy actually gives you the shovel whenever you talk to him. Then we can we'll go ahead and reflect that he's giving you the shovel in his text as well. That way we know what we did was right. Hit OK, save, test play. And now when I talk to this fool, he's just going to give all his stuff away. The shovel included book, key, map, rope, torch, no item, and shovel. It works perfectly fine. Now when we do checks out in the world to see what we have, we don't necessarily search for active item. You can, I suppose. We'll do a stationary speak, convert to custom event. You'll notice if you're adding conditions over here, you can't pick string variable. You can only pick from like event switch, variable box, and then there's some other, of course, parameters. But variable box refers to the numbered integer variables, but Bakin lets you browse and select basically any variable. It's not quite going to be correct, I think, because these string variables don't equal numbers. I think the contents of them can certainly be numbers. I don't know if a check against a string variable, if its content is composed of numbers entirely, would work. It might actually work, but it's not helpful for what we want to do. So instead of checking the string variable, active item, active topic, because we can't input letters in this field, we can only put in numbers because it's expecting us to use an integer or numbered variable. We have to check the pointer. So then we have to remember where exactly in the list of items does the item that we're trying to check for fall. The shovel is going to be 6. I know this because I just put it in there, and then we'll put a conditional judgment. No, I don't even have to do that. He won't even appear unless it says the shovel is the active item. So that'll be our test, but he'll say, I see you have a shovel. Planning some fun tonight? Hit OK and apply. All right, if we test play, he's not there because I don't have shovel as the active item. I'll get my stuff, I'll cycle through my items, and, well, actually, shovel is not number 6. I was wrong. No item is set to number 6. That's wrong. We'll do some quick debugging. Real quick debugging. I got it. Because we increment the variable before we ever check for the item, we have to make sure that the pointer is set to the number before that item. So in this case, it needs to be set, or rather the number in the code block after the item. And since this was the last code block, it needs to be the one at the very top of the event, which means it's back to 0. I think that's correct. Let's do a test play real quick. Give me my shovel. Yeah, now he appears whenever it's set to shovel. 0 is the default that this variable is set to, which means he was here before I ever even got the shovel. So what I need to do to make this better at this point is to put the no topic or no keyword to its 0 point, and I need to put like the no item to its 0 instead of like an item occupying the 0. That way you don't have an item that you're running around with by default at all times, mechanically behind the scenes. And I also think a much better way to check for the items in your inventory, instead of using conditional sheet conditions, just get rid of that. Don't even worry about using sheet conditions. Use the conditions over here in the event panels, and then it's much more intuitive, because if you're doing a conditional judgment check string variable box, then you can check active item, and you can just put in intuitively the thing that you're searching for instead of having to guess the numbers. We'll do this, and then if you have that, he'll say, shovel. Rightio. Yeah, okay, we'll do whatever. Last test play, he doesn't say squat. Why? Because shovel is not the active topic. So I've got a book, he doesn't say anything. Key, nothing. Map, nothing. Rope, nothing. Torch, nothing. No item. Shovel. He says it. He says the words. This is the way. This is the way. This is how I'm going to do things. All right, sorry for all the blabber mouth and rapid fire talking. I'm actually extremely excited that the system works. I've been on this sort of high about this mechanic working since I got it going, and I've just been nonstop full of energy and hope and how awesome it is to have this going, because this means, because the groundwork has been laid, although it hasn't been decorated, although it hasn't been flavored, it doesn't look pretty yet, the groundwork has been laid. That means I can simply add content by sitting down and just adding content. I don't have to worry about designing all kinds of new things. I could literally add 2 or 3 NPCs, a little bit of dialogue, some sort of ludic gameplay element to point you in the right direction, and bam, we've got another 5 minutes of content. And that is exactly the goal that I have in mind for this series, for this game. I want to make sure that I down the most solid of frameworks and groundwork as possible, so that it's easy to create the content, and then I don't have to spend 10 hours to make 10 minutes of content. I can just spend 20 minutes to make 10 minutes of content. That's the idea anyway. Whether or not that fails or succeeds, we will see. That does remain to be seen. But for now, thank you very much for watching this devlog on DeprHaven. In the next episode, I hope to have more visual updates for you. I do believe that will be the case, because I'm beginning to take on some help. That is the direction that we will be going. So, thank you again for watching. I'll see you next episode. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and bye for now.